Okay, so seated for the beginning of tonight's session. I'm sitting on the block and the end of the bolster. My bolster is very thin, so it's probably at the height of an actual bolster. But my knees are relatively close together and the heels are out, so adopting a straddle pose, but relatively high. And take a little breath and just allow myself to relax. I'm going to close my eyes for a moment. And you'll notice that the hands, well, you won't because I just asked you to close your eyes, that was silly. My left hand is on the bottom and the right hand is on top, palms facing up, and just the thumbs gently touching. So the fingers are not interlaced, they're just outstretched. I'm going to add a little bit extra into this by taking the arms out in line with the shoulders and then just crossing them over in front of me to take eagle arms and letting the elbows drop in towards the body and letting the shoulders relax back and down. And I release the arms out and cross them over the opposite way. And I release the arms. I'm going to take the strap and buckle into my left hand. Just take the strap around gently of the fist so that the buckle doesn't drop into my head. Take the left hand high, and then I'm going to bend the little elbow, drop the hand down towards the nape of my neck, and just move the elbow a little bit towards the back of my mat. Take the other hand, palm facing out, and just walking the fingers in. So we're coming into more of a cow face pose shape. I'm going to see if we can draw the elbows back a little bit towards the back of the mat. So not taking the grip, unless it's really easy, to the fingertips. You want a little bit of space in the shoulders, so maybe a little bit less than you would normally if you're doing a hatha class. So you've got that little bit of room to press the elbows back. untangle the strap and the buckle from one hand to place it into the second. And allow ourselves to take that hand up, a little stretch, take the strap behind, bend in the elbows, and then just ease that elbow back a little bit. So kind of make some space in the shoulder before we take the fuller part of the position. And then taking the hand down so the palm faces out, and we just walk the hands up the strap. Doesn't have to get to the same kind of level on both sides. It's where it feels comfortable. And again, giving yourself that little bit of space so that you can then move the elbows towards the back of the mat. And then we can release from that again. We'll put the strap gently to one side and going to allow ourselves to come into child's pose. So I'm just going to lift off on my blocks and bolsters because I don't need them in my child's pose. I'm going to have the knees relatively close together, about hip distance apart. Sitting down gently, I'm going to allow the head to come to the floor and take the hands towards the toes. So if the head doesn't reach the floor, you can bring the block or the bolster back underneath. You can actually lie directly on top of the bolster if you wanted to be higher, or just take the block under the head. We'll slowly bring the hands forward. Lengthen them out, that shoulder distance apart, and then I'm going to see if I can turn the palms up towards the sky so the thumbs point out to the edges. And again, just let ourselves sink down into the pose. We're trying to keep the elbows off the ground by lengthening the arms away. And then we'll lift up from here. Slowly up onto all fours and just stretch the legs out gently, one at a time. We're going to come back down onto our bellies. So bringing the elbows to the floor, taking the feet out behind us, and just bring the feet onto the center line. Bring the hands underneath the chin so the elbows are out to the side. And then we'll just slide the right knee out to the side 90 degrees to the body. Let the shin follow the line of the mat into our half frog. We're going to be here for about 2.5 minutes or so. So plenty of time to Let those muscles relax in the hips and let them sink into the floor. React and then run through the whole process again a couple of times if we're lucky. So start to bring the foot back to touch the thigh and then slide the foot along the leg so we keep the knee in contact with the ground. Very little lifting or twisting in the spine. Take the feet out about hip distance apart and we'll come into Sphinx pose. So just going to lift up gently onto those forearms, parallelish. Let the chest open and the shoulders roll back and then sink a little into that. Soft belly, soft lower back and soft buttocks and thighs. That might be a situation where if there isn't sort of tension in the spine, then letting go is a fairly quick, easy practice to get into. But if you're carrying some soreness in there, if the muscles are overworked from something else you've been doing, then the process of letting go can be a little bit obvious to you in terms of how it feels. It's quite difficult to let muscles go that are actually sore. Strange, really. You'd think that that's the thing that they'd be crying out for, but they tend to hold themselves even tighter. It does become a little bit of a mind over matter issue. It's a fairly common phenomenon. Not sure if it has a name, but if it has, that's escaped me. I'm going to ease our way back down to do half frog on the second side. So just bring the toes together to touch, chin onto the back of the hands. Just turn the head and slowly take that left leg out. Just feeling right angles in the leg. It might be a very different experience on one side of the body to the other. It's also worth noting that you might need to let the shoulders relax in this pose. Making space, moving the arms around a little bit to accommodate. Now, turning of the head towards the knee is optional, as is actually putting the chin on the back of the hands. You could supplement that by using the block in some way. Again, I'm going to bring that foot to touch the thigh and then slide the leg out. Allow yourself to rock out the hips a little bit from side to side. And then you're going to come back up into that saddle pose. Bring the hands down towards the bottom of the ribs to lift gently away from the floor. Bring the hands underneath the body and the knees. Take the block or the bolster. Slide that down towards the heels. Take the feet wide, and then we ease ourselves gently back in. So coming down a little bit lower than previously when I used the bolster for assistance, but still just placing the hands this time on the thighs, fingers facing forwards, toes facing back. Now, any eye-watering pains in the knees means that you need to lift yourself up a little bit. The idea is to get the knees to open, but not so traumatically that it causes you to wince. The calf muscles, especially as we're doing so much walking these days, might be a little bit tight, in which case it'll take a little time to kind of mold into position and start to release a little bit. So trying to keep the knees relatively close together so you start to get a little internal rotation in the thighs. Now we'll take this a little further, just bring the hands to the floor. Going to lift up just enough to move the block out of the way, and then bring the heels and slide them back underneath the sitting bones as a sit back. Allow the fingers to come behind a little bit, and then see if I can lift the knees away from the floor to start to stretch the top of the foot, the boot laces out a little bit more. And let the knees come back down. So the feet move out to the side, and then we sit down gently onto the floor. And we're going to take something called a half shoelace. So legs are out in front, and I'm just going to simply take the left foot, bring that across, squeeze the thighs together, and wrap the heel towards the hip on the right side. So I want to get these thighs as close together, a little gap as possible in here. If you need to put a rolled up blanket or something underneath the back of the knee to stop it feeling like it's pressing down too strongly, you can do. But otherwise, just allowing yourself to roll the flesh out a little bit. And keep the strap fairly close by. And just allow ourselves to sit up nice and tall. Now, not only is this critical to get into than the full shoelace, it's perhaps a little easier as well. We're going to add some extra flavors to this. But before we do that, we'll take the same pose to the opposite side. So we'll just untangle the legs and lengthen them out. Give that ankle a little bit of time to kind of roll round and free itself up. And then we'll take the right leg across and feed that towards the hip. And again, squeeze the thighs together, get them as close as you can. A little bit of manipulation going on to get them into a comfy place. And then when you're ready, we're just sitting up on those sit bones, the pelvis in a nice neutral position, and letting ourselves relax. Now we will, in total, do 3 of these to each side, and the next 2 will progress into slightly different variations. So we'll release and start to come back into side 1. And we'll take the strap into the left hand, wrap the strap around the buckle, around the fist. Left hand high, right hand behind, same as we did before. Just feed those hands towards each other, and then see if we can let the elbows just drift a little bit towards the back of the mat. Now this does get a little bit trickier to sit up straight. There is a tendency in my body to feel like it's falling backwards a little bit. I'm trying to just lengthen the spine out in a way that there's a little bit of lift, but also a little bit of acceptance of gravity drawing me back down to the floor. So I'm not using every muscle in my body to strain lifting towards the sky. It's just trying to find a nice balance between the lift and the drop so that it goes more down the spine rather than bending the spine. Last little breath here. Release the hands and the feet. Take it over to the opposite side. So we'll move the foot first. Get that into a comfortable phase. It might not feel completely instinctive on both sides, and it might feel Like there's quite a variation, and that's not a problem. We can embrace that. So the fingers slowly walk towards each other. Move the elbows back a little bit. Think about the line of the body. Position of the head will affect that. So if you jar forwards a little bit, that will add to the feeling of leaning back. So trying to bring the neck nicely in line with the spine. My body has a tendency to hang on quite a lot through the thighs. It takes a lot of effort to see if I can get them to release. And then we'll finally let that move out of the way. So untangle, take the straps out to the side, cross over again. So left leg comes across. And I'm going to take this into a twist this time. So I'm going to twist to the left and use my right hand on the front thigh and the left hand behind, look over the rear shoulder. Take a final release from that. And do side two. And turning the body gently to the right. I'm going to release from there. I'm going to lie back down onto the floor. I'm going to take the block towards the back of the mat. I'm going to come into the stirrup pose, which looks vaguely familiar as happy baby. Now, for most of us, that's going to mean getting the spine nice and long, drawing the knees in, taking them wide, sliding the fingers down the shins, and then holding on to the ankles as we bring the soles of the feet to the sky. For those that are hypermobile or more into that range, then you might be able to find easily to take around the side of the foot, little toe area. Rather than flexing the feet, allow the ankles to relax. Let the weight of the legs and the arms assist in drawing the limbs towards the floor. And then we can let the feet gently come down. Going to roll onto my left side and use our hands to press in the floor to lift up. We're going to move into squat pose. So I'm going to keep myself fairly low, sink myself in. So I'm going to take the heels to the corner edges of the mat, turn the toes out a little bit. Spend a little time walking the feet around to get into a comfortable position. And then if you need to have a sense of balance by keeping the hands on the floor, that's fine. If you're able to just rest the arms onto the tops of the knees and let the body sit up a little higher and let the hips sink a little lower naturally as a corresponding result of lifting the chest, then that would be good. It's wherever you feel that you can sit here for a couple of minutes. Now, I know it's going to get tight around those front ligaments and tendons in the ankles, but we'll just allow the practice to teach us to tolerate such things. Again, in this pose, the use of the prop is optional. If you're able to get the heels on the ground easily, that's fine. And then we'll lean forwards just a little bit so we can bring the fingers to the floor. Going to take the hips high, turn the toes forwards and the heels out, turn the toes in just a little bit. And we're going to take the block out to the side, just off of the mat. Now, the reason we want the feet just that little bit wider than we would normally have in a forward fold is because we're going to take this into a pose called dangle. Now, the first thing with a dangle is that we want the ribs and the thighs to actually touch. So we've made enough space here for the body to sink through the middle. We'll let the crown of the head sink to the floor. And we're going to bend the knees enough for those ribs and thighs to actually touch. So depending on how tight your hamstrings are or how long or short they are, it will dictate whether the bend in the knees is significant or fractional. Mine's a pretty big bend. My hands are flat to the floor. You could lift up and take the hands away from the ground and make a little bit of a cradle with the forearms and just rest the head gently there. And this has value because we know exactly where the shoulders are then. If you've ever wondered whether you can really stretch your hamstrings out with bent legs, the answer is yes. In about another minute, so you'll probably agree. bring the hands down to the floor. I'm going to walk fingers towards the front of the mat, just gently. We'll bring ourselves into a down dog shape. So I'll bring the feet a little bit more into hip width. Heels hiding behind the ankles, and the hips nice and high. I said hips behind the ankles, I did actually mean heels. So if I didn't quite get the H word out, that's what it was supposed to be. I'll take a last breath here. Allow yourself to come up on the tippy toes, keeping the legs straight. I'm going to walk the feet into about halfway down the mat. And then allow the heels to come to the ground. Walk the fingers back towards the toes. And then soft knees, bring the hands onto the hips, a flat back, and let myself lift up. Take a breath here. Take the feet a little wider than the shoulders. And just let myself gently come into a nice flowing twist. So I want the knees to be bent permanently, just a fraction. As I twist from side to side, I'm going to shift the weight from one foot to the other and bend a little bit more into that corresponding knee. And you can choose to keep the head facing forwards, focused on one point, or you can let your chin and your head follow where your heart is pointing, spinning around a little bit. One will make you quite a lot more dizzy than the other. And just got a few more breaths. And then we can stop. I'll shake the legs out and bring the feet together so they touch, a little gap between the heels. And we're going to take the arms up towards the sky above the head, palms touch. Breathing in. Exhale, taking the hands wide and back down to the side. Inhale up. And exhale down. Inhaling up. And exhaling down. To make it a little bit more interesting, we'll take the next one with the eyes closed. And see if we can remain standing. Try and keep the rhythm of the arms and the breath the same as they were before. Now, the eyes closed can feel a little intimidating and the breath might quicken. So you might have to take a little more control over the breath. As we open the eyes, we'll shake that out and walk up to the front of the mat. Taking a turn to the right, going to take the feet out into a nice star shape. So just wiggling them out gently or stepping, your choice. And then when you're ready, we'll float the arms up to the height of the shoulders, palms face down. Turn both feet towards the front mat, and we'll sink gently into Warrior Two. I'm going to let the hands come down in front of the groin, straightening the front leg, turning the toes to the center, spinning the feet to the back of the mat as I take the hands out again, sinking to warrior two to the second side. Try to relax the shoulders as much as they can because we've got quite a few of these to do. They will get a little bit tired. Take another breath. And relax the hands down in front of the groins as we spin the toes towards the long edge of the mat. And then take it to the front. Come back into warrior two. The hands come down, we lift. Spin it out to the second side. And again we shift. Take it to the front, warrior two. Release, take it to the back. And release. Take it to the front. And release to the back. Release. We'll take it forwards again. Release. Take it to the back. Release. Come to the front. Turn the palm on the front hand, reverse warrior. And come back into warrior two and release, straightening the front leg, take it to the rear of the mat. Warrior two, turn the palm, reverse warrior. So we're lifting the body up and out of the pelvis, following the arch in the spine. Back leg stays strong as the front leg. Come back into warrior two. Straighten the leg. Take it into the front. Turn the palm, reverse warrior. And back into that warrior two. Straighten the legs. Hands come down, we spin. Warrior two. Reverse warrior. Back into warrior two, straightening the legs, hands come down towards the front of the mat. Reverse warrior. And take it into warrior two, to the front, to the rear, to reverse. Coming back into warrior two. Hands come down, we turn the feet. Inhale, reverse. Exhale back into warrior two. Hands down to the floor, return. Warrior two, inhale high. Exhale, warrior two. Hands to the front of the body, and then we sink into warrior two to the front. Extend out over the front thigh. Bring the forearm onto that front leg and extend the hand out slowly. We'll come back into our warrior two. Straighten the front leg. Spin the feet to the back of the mat. Warrior two. Lengthen. Take the hand up and over. Turning the chest alongside of the mat. One more breath. Exhale, come back into warrior two. Straighten the legs, turn the toes towards the front of the mat. Sink into warrior two. I'm going to take the hands behind the back and come into humble warrior. So I'm going to turn the chest very gently, keeping the back foot planted. Lengthen the body over that front thigh. Then start to lower to the inside of the thigh as you let the hands lift towards the sky and the head drops towards the ground. You keep the hips over the center line. We'll come slowly back up, warrior two. Bring the hands down, straightening the front leg, taking it to the second side. Warrior two. Find balance through the legs, hands come behind, interlace the fingers and down. Turn the chest away, lengthen out over the front thigh. When we feel safe, we drop onto the inside of the thigh a little bit. Conscious of pubic bone and center line alignment. Using the hands towards the sky. Keeping the belly drawn in a little. And exhale back up. Warrior two. Straighten the front leg. Feet spin in. We take a breath. Hands onto the hips. Lengthen the body out slowly. Into that wide leg forward fold. Bring the hands gently onto the floor underneath the body. Now I'm going to walk the fingers around to the front end of the mat. Step back into plank. Let the knees come to the floor. And you want to make sure you've got plenty of room to the front of the mat. And slide the feet back down the center line of the mat onto your belly. And we're just going to take the hands out about shoulder distance apart. So we're looking towards the fingers, just walking the fingers out nicely. And then we're going to walk the hands over towards the right side. So we're going to come into a side bend, but it's prone. We're lying on the floor. You can turn the head the same direction if you want. Or you can keep the chin on the ground, your choice, but you try and keep the hands the same distance apart again as we had before. Which, just to reiterate, was about shoulder distance-ish. lift the head a little, look towards the fingers, bring ourselves back into the center line and lengthen out through the body. And then take the hands over towards the left side. We are trying to keep the we are trying to keep the body flat to the floor. Too many F's in that sentence. And we'll lift the head, bring the hands gently back to the center. Now this time allow the feet to come out about hip distance apart. Bring the hands underneath the chin, just temporarily as we take a breath and bend the right knee. We'll take a little breath from here and take the right hand back. Find hopefully a foot that is belonging to you. And just slowly encourage the heel towards the outside of the hip. So towards sitting bones and then just a little out to the side. Try and keep the knee pointing down towards the bottom of the mat so we can press the thigh into the floor a little bit and the hips as well. This is called frog pose. We're doing the hatha version and doing one leg at a time. Could be done with both legs, but a little bit easier to take one at a time. And release. Bring the hands back up as we untangle the legs, and then we swap over to the second side. And then we can release. From there, we'll come back into the Sphinx pose. This time we're going to draw the belly in, press the forearms into the floor and lift the chest up and out, toes away. Just a few more breaths. Still lengthening the legs away, belly drawn in, shoulders broad and wide. And then we're going to let ourselves come back down onto the ground. Now we'll bring the chin onto the back of the hands, just wriggle out the hips a few times. And then we'll take bow pose. So we're going to see if we can draw both heels towards the bottom. Take one hand at a time back, this time looking for ankles rather than toes. If your body's anything like mine, my hips tend to lift away from the floor. So the first thing is to start to press them down to the ground and lengthen the knees away to the bottom of the mat. Second thing to do is to flex the feet so they get a nice connection, feel like there's a strong connection between the hands and the ankles. You're going to start to press the shins away and let the shoulders draw back a little bit, keeping the belly in. I'm going to let the chest lift up slowly as I continue to press the shins away. Thighs are still flat to the floor, hopefully. And then I'm going to see if I can lift the soles of the feet to the sky to get the thighs away from the ground. So you're still pressing out through the shins. And then release down. Let the feet go. Shake out those hips and bottoms again. Now to come back up to sitting, I find the easiest way to do that for my spine is to actually just roll onto the right side, or the knees in, and then use the hands to press away from the floor. There's no sudden movements in the spine. I distribute the weight evenly through the body. Let myself sit up onto my trusty block again. And just for the moment, I'm going to bring the soles of the feet together. So not too close, not too far away. With the strap, I'm going to take the D-rings and just make this into a loop. And then I'm going to take the strap around the outside edge of the thighs, so quite close up near the knees. Make sure that the strap isn't tangled. And make an adjustment in the strap, so just drawing it in, so that I can get to a comfy place where the legs can just hang out. And the strap is kind of cradling the legs for me. And then once I've done that, I'm going to take it back off again, because I'm going to need that in a few minutes time, and then take the legs back out to Dandasana. Just lengthen the legs out gently, take the hands behind. Let the body sit up nice and tall. Lift the chest, press the sitting bones down, draw the belly in, flex the toes evenly back towards my body and spread them out nice and wide. I'm going to come from here into Janu Shirshasana. So I'm going to take my right heel into the groin. Let the knee sink down to the floor. If you need a bolster or cushion underneath it to support it, you can do. If it doesn't go to the floor, turn the thigh so that it points up towards the sky as the knee and the shin should do, and the foot. A little bend into the knee. Bring the hands onto the shin. I'm going to lift the body up first, fold it over. See where we get to. Extend the hands down the sides of the legs. I'm not pulling, they're just lengthening out. And then I'm going to fold the body over and let the spine round. The head comes down last. Still got a decent bend in the knee. And then I'll use the hands to lift myself gently back up. I'll take myself into the second side slowly and gently. So just easing that left heel in, knee out to the side, square up a little bit, square the front thigh, put the bend into the knee, hands onto the shins, lift the hips up and out of the pelvis, and then fold over the thighs, slide the hands down, take a breath, let the head hang down slowly. And then we'll let ourselves lift from there. We'll take a twisted seat pose here. So we're going to take the right foot underneath and the left foot over. Going to turn towards the right, so it's an open twist away from the legs. And we'll release. And cross over to the last side. Still aiming to keep both sitting bones attached to the ground. And then we'll slowly release from this side as well. Take the legs out, just give those ankles and toes a little bit of a last stretch round. And then we're going to bring the soles of the feet together again, take the strap and just place that around the thighs, just making sure again there's no twist, especially around where it's touching the thighs. And the strap's kind of the buckle, rather, is in between the legs, so it's not touching or digging in anywhere. Now I'm going to shift myself forwards a little bit, and I'm going to move the block towards the back of the mat. To roll down gently, I'm just going to lift the bottom off the floor and tuck the tailbone forward so that I roll a little bit more onto the back of the pelvis, so off of the coccyx and the sitting bones, and then just use the hands to guide myself down. And let the strain be taken by the straps through the thighs, and move the block underneath the back of the hip. You might still need to wriggle out the hips a little bit from side to side to let them settle. Again, we'll see if we can take the hands down by the side of the body. Now, if your room is a little bit chilly on the floor, you might need to Put an extra layer on or a blanket over the top of the fleece. Going to try to relax the abdominals, so really from the groin all the way into the chest. And that whole area to be very relaxed. So just tuning in. Legs will gradually understand that they're being supported and they'll look after themselves. Shoulders hopefully will respond and join in with the hips. Take a little breath from there. Wriggle the toes. Fingers. Overrun a little bit. Hopefully not too much. A bit of a stretch through the arms. And then I'm going to use my hands to find the strap. Just draw the strap towards me so that my legs ease themselves up slowly. And then a little hug. And roll onto the right side. Just use my hands to press into the floor to lift out of that restorative pose. Sitting up tall. Hands into the heart, taking a breath in. As you exhale, bow to the floor. On the inhale, let yourself rise. Open the eyes, namaste. Thank you for joining me.